Hi everyone, it's Craig. I wanted to do something a little bit different tonight to sort of share something about myself with you. Um, I'm 50 years old, and the thing is, by the time you get to be 50, you change a lot throughout life. You things that you liked 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, you maybe like less or you're not into as much, and that's the way life is. You just sort of roll with it and you just become a new person over and over again. But the funny thing is that there is something about me that has never changed, and that is my love of record collecting. I am a record collector. Records were a big part of my life in the 1970s when I was growing up. And that was the thing, it was like our family for a while only had one record player, and we would play singles and we would play music, and we'd all huddle around the record player, just sort of singing and talking and enjoying the music. And that never left me. I must confess that when I was living in Los Angeles more than 10 years ago, I had 900 records in my collection. I no longer have 900 records in my collection. When I was moving back here in 2010, I realized there was no way I was going to be able to afford to ship all those records. I had to scale down. I sold a lot of them so that I could afford to ship the ones I really liked. And so when I think I shipped about 250 to 300 records. And in the last 10 years, I've added more than another 100 to those titles. So I have over 400 now. And I just thought this is my way of sharing my parts of my collection. I'm not going to show you too many. I don't want to bore you, but at the same time, these are some of my favorite records, the ones that I absolutely adore, that I'm so proud that I actually found. So I'm gonna before I know that everything is going to be mirror imaged. So unfortunately, you're going to see the mirror image of everything. So you're going to see a lot of backwards printing. So let's take a look at what we have here. This one here is Paul Simon's first solo album, the Paul Simon Songbook. Now this was an album he made after he made his first album with Art Garfunkel. He made it in England. It's just him and his guitar. That's his girlfriend Kathy there, which he wrote a few songs for her about. And a lot of these songs were later recorded by Simon and Garfunkel. On here is I Am a Rock, Leaves That Are Green, The Sounds of Silence, Most Peculiar Man, Kathy's Song, Flowers Never Bend with the Rainfall, Patterns. This is a really good album. It's just him and his guitar, but it's a great album. Sorry, it's the mirror image. Okay. Ringo. Now, the thing about Ringo is I used to own this as a reissue album. It was a green label Capitol reissue. And this one I found at the Norton Flea Market. I don't know if any of you there remember that, but there used to be a massive Norton Flea Market. And this guy was selling this record for $3. And I bought it, and this was well worth my investment of $3 because the original, the reissue that I had did not have the superfluous gatefold. Also, it has an original label. Oops, excuse me. Original label with Ringo. It's tough to see that, but Ringo is on the label, laying in a star pattern. Let me just put this back. And also, one of the great things about this record is that it comes with this lyric sheet that has illustration. Whoops, it's upside down. Illustrations by Klaus Voormann, who, as some of you may know, was the Beatles' friend in the Hamburg days. And he later became the bass player for Manfred Mann. And he also designed the album cover for the Beatles' Revolver album. So this is a marvelous, marvelous collection of drawings. This is wonderful. This is a major part of my collection, and I love it. Okay, so next we have, this is not what I wanted to show you. This is Peter Cook and Dudley Moore's Good Evening. I know you can't read that because it's reversed, but Good Evening. This was a show they did in 1975. When they came to America, they were doing a two-man show. But here's the thing, this is a pretty standard release. Before they came to America, they were doing the show in England and around, and it had a different title. It was called Behind the Fridge. And this was a play on their 1960 show with Jonathan Miller and Alan Bennett called Beyond the Fringe. And so this was Behind the Fridge. The track listings on both are similar but not exact. And definitely they're from different performances. And this was definitely the find. I found this in Boston at a marvelous record store. I can't remember the name at the moment. Speaking of Peter and Dudley, for a few years they recorded a few albums that were incredibly filthy. They used to get a bit drunk and then go into the studio and open up a couple of mics and just improvise. And this was one of them, Derek and Clive. That's what they would record under those. Derek and Clive. This one's called Ad Nauseum, and this is a disgusting, disgusting album cover. As you can see, it comes in a plastic sleeve. This is awful. I know. I'll put it away. But here's the sleeve it comes in, and in the back it says, "In case of sickness, use this bag." But this is probably my favorite of their three Derek and Clive albums. It's just absolutely filthy and disgusting, but very, very funny. That's the last I'll show you of that. Okay, some of you may have heard of Syd Barrett. This is his first solo album, The Madcap Laughs. And he designed the cover himself. He was the lead singer, songwriter, and guitarist for Pink Floyd. And he had to leave because he went a bit mad, and David Gilmour took his place. And it has a superfluous gatefold because it's only one record long. And as you can see, he designed the gatefold himself, all these pictures of himself. And this is obviously a reissue album because there's no way this could make it from 1970 and still be in great condition. But I found this at Amoeba Music in Los Angeles. And I love this album. Marvelous. Speaking of Pink Floyd, we do have Pink Floyd, The Piper at the Gates of Dawn. This was Syd Barrett's, the guy we just mentioned. This was the one and only album he did with Pink Floyd all the way through. There's Syd. There's Roger Waters. And again, this is probably a reissue, even though it has the original EMI label. It's in too good condition to be an original, but it's a marvelous piece of this collection. Now here's something that's filled with nostalgia, because when I was a kid, one of the albums that was played so much was Jesus Christ Superstar. And I got to tell you, I was frightened I was an 8-year-old running scared from the room because when the crucifixion track came on, I was frightened of it. I can listen to it now, but back then it was terrifying to an 8-year-old. But here I have a copy of Jesus Christ Superstar. But here's the thing. My parents owned this, and it's a double album, and it was a gatefold. But I love this because I found this at a place called Phi Beta Records in Los Angeles that doesn't exist anymore. And as you can see, it is not a gatefold album. It is a box. Now, I'd never seen it as a box before. And here's the libretto. And here's the record with the angel. It's upside down in this picture, but the angel label. You know, that logo, that wonderful logo. Again, I have to apologize because everything is mirror image. Sorry about that. But it's in great condition. You know, I was very happy to find a box of this. And speaking of boxes, here's another box album. George Harrison and Friends, the concert for Bangladesh. This one slightly damaged up here. That's too bad. I repaired it with a bit of Scotch tape. But this is an incredible collection. Whoops, the box detaches. On Jesus Christ Superstar, it's hinged. This one, it detaches. And we have the three, it's a triple record set. And it also comes with this incredible booklet, which is filled with photos. Ravi Shankar, Ali Akbar Khan, George Harrison, Billy Preston, all Eric Clapton, all pictures from the concert. Leon Russell, the late great, God love him. This is the best one of the bunch. That's George Harrison and Bob Dylan. George one more time. This is a wonderful collection, and that's the thing about records is you can have this on CD, and it just doesn't. It just doesn't. You know, you need to have this on vinyl to give it the majesty it deserves. This is wonderful. Okay, the next one I'm going to show you is a Monty Python album. Monty Python's Matching Tie and Handkerchief. Again, mirror image. Sorry about that. Watch this in a mirror if you can. The thing I love about this is that, for two reasons, is Terry Gilliam's design of the cover. Because you can see, okay, we have a matching tie and handkerchief, and then you pull the sleeve out, and you get that. Okay. The funny thing is when Arista Records released this, instead of giving, they couldn't afford to keep doing the die cut. Instead of giving us that image, the reissue looked like that. It was a terrible cover. I love Monty Python because, I mean, they give you that. They put jokes all through the liner notes, which is wonderful. And this album is marvelous because side one is just a regular side of comedy. Side two, they put on two grooves. Whereas you put the needle on the record, it would play about 12 minutes of material and end. And then if you put the needle at the front of the record in a slightly different place, it would play 12 more minutes of different material. And it's a little bit frustrating if you're trying to hear the whole album. But this is it. This is an original. So it has the two grooves on side two. I'm going to put this away. Okay, and here we have Jethro Tull's Thick as a Brick. And it's made to look like a newspaper. And the great thing, this is an original. The great thing about this is, if you open up the gatefold, you will find you have a full newspaper filled with stories and ads, connect the dots, crossword. These are all the lyrics to the album right there. More and more stories. That's incredible. You know, I absolutely adore this. You know, that's the last page. But I mean, it's amazing that they were able to figure out how to fold this in on itself. I think I have to figure it out myself. Oh yeah, you fold it in like that and close it. You know, you got stories on the back. That is a great album cover. I love it. Now, I have two records here that'll go together. These are the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy albums. Now, this is different from the radio show. It's a new recording, and they changed a few things on both these records. This is the entirety of it. As you can see with the Rubber Ducky, this is the entirety of the show. It goes from, you know, down to when they get to Earth, prehistoric Earth. And it's not the radio broadcast. They re-recorded a whole new version, and I found this in LA at Amoeba Music, and I'm so proud to have Hitchhiker's Guide You know, if you're a Hitchhikers fan, you know, these are wonderful to have. Okay, I don't have lots and lots of soundtrack albums, but one of the ones that I absolutely love is this one. Oh Lucky Man. Alan Price's score to Oh Lucky Man. It's got a superfluous gatefold with lyrics and images from the film. And I don't know how many of you have seen Oh Lucky Man, but you probably know, if you have seen it, you know that the action stops every now and then, and it cuts to a studio where Alan Price and his band are performing these songs. These songs are, I love these songs, and the thing is, the reason why I love this album is because it's so hard to find. I don't think this has been released on CD. I don't know if you can find a digital download of it. Maybe you can, but this is one that I like to put on from time to time. You know, it's a good album, and it starred Malcolm McDowell, as you can see, and Helen Mirren, and a few other people. And this is a great album. And now here is, I have to say, is one of the creme de la cremes of my collection. This is the last one I'm going to do tonight. I don't know if any of you ever heard of Phil Ochs. He was a folk singer. Never really got a lot of success in his life. He did 3 albums for Elektra and then 5 albums for A&M, and then his career really didn't go anywhere. But here's the thing. I found this. This is Phil Ochs' final album. It's a live album, Gunfight at Carnegie Hall. And it's not a wonderful album. You know, it's a strange, confused album. But this album is special because his record company did not want to release it, and he said, well, release it in Canada. And so they did release it in Canada, and it didn't go anywhere. But here it is, and the thing is, I used to go to this record store in Burbank called Atomic Records, and they used to have a wall of records in plastic sleeves, and those were the best ones they were selling, and those were the expensive ones. And I always looked at those records and like, oh, I wish I could afford to get those records. They're wonderful. Well, in the 12 years that I lived in LA and was going there, I only ever bought one record from the wall, and it's this one. I can't exactly remember how much it was. You know, it wasn't in the hundreds. It was probably something like $35. And back, you know, when you're a struggling guy, $35 is a lot of money to spend on a record. But I said I had to have it, and here it is, Gunfight at Carnegie Hall. And this is one of my treasure troves in my collection, Gunfight at Carnegie Hall, by Phil Ochs. So anyway, I just felt I wanted to share that with you, and I hope that you didn't mind it too much. And I will talk to you again soon. Have a good one. Bye-bye.